Heart of the River is a grassroots community organization of concerned citizens dedicated to preserving a free-flowing white river. We, members of this community, banded together in 2013 to oppose the construction of a dam on the White River in Anderson to create Mounds Lake Reservoir. Since that time, we have volunteered our time and money to educate our community and oppose this project. Heart of the River, along with its many coalition partners, has called this news conference on this spring equinox to publicly respond to Phase 2 study of the proposal to build a dam on the White River within the city limits of Anderson. This study, contracted by the Corporation for Economic Development, conducted by DLZ Engineering, and funded by the taxpayers of the state of Indiana at the cost of $600,000, falls short of being an objective, thorough investigation of the feasibility of creating a reservoir in Madison and Delaware counties. In fact, the document raises more questions than it answers, and it fails to address critical concerns. Affirming our conclusion is a March 4, 2015 in-depth critique of the Phase 1 and 2 studies by 14 Ball State University researchers. In their critique, they state, "We believe that neither the rigor of the methods of evaluation nor the detail of the information presented in both the Phase 1 and Phase 2 studies are sufficient for the public to evaluate the degree of adverse effects or the financial feasibility of this proposal. In particular, at this juncture, the conclusion of financial feasibility of the Mounds Lake Reservoir is not supported by the data or analysis presented in the Phase 1 and Phase 2 studies." Furthermore, this week, the Delaware County Board of Health has identified 4 potential concerns about the Mounds Lake project that could negatively impact the health and safety of county residents and users. Copies of both of these documents will be available immediately after the conference. Therefore, the Heart of the River Coalition, along with many concerned citizens of central Indiana, we have 2,129 petition signatures so far. And you're welcome to look at the names if you would like. They're authentic signatures. Therefore, we call on the Anderson Corporation for Economic Development to withdraw from the 8 governing entities in Madison and Delaware counties the ordinance authorizing formation of the Mounds Lake Commission. Furthermore, it is our request that all consideration of this project be abandoned. For its proponents, the Phase 2 study produced no red flags that would prevent the project from moving forward. We see red flags everywhere. We consider this project to be fatally flawed for the following reasons. There has been no objective cost analysis study indicating that construction of a reservoir would have a positive impact on the local communities. The stated purpose of the project, to provide for future water needs in central Indiana, is based on an erroneous assumption. As a matter of fact, of 20 solutions created to solve a hypothetical water shortage in the next 35 to 50 years by Citizens Water of Indianapolis, the least cost-effective, coming in at number 20, is building a reservoir. According to authoritative sources, central Indiana water supplies are sufficient for the next 30 to 50 years. Given that the premise of the argument for this project is faulty, the proposal to fund the project by selling the water once the dam is constructed is fatally flawed. It is unlikely that the CED will find customers for the water, thereby leaving a potential billion-dollar debt for Madison and Delaware County taxpayers. Over 400 families would be forced from their homes. Many businesses would be closed or moved. A designated nature preserve within Mounds State Park would be destroyed, and 1/3 of the park would be inundated, putting at risk the historic Adena Hopewell Mounds. Over 100 designated archaeological sites would be flooded. The study proposes to mitigate the effects of the flood. The fact is, however, much of this damage could not be mitigated.
I'm Jeff Stamp with the Indiana Forest Alliance. I want to point out also that 1,000 acres of rare riparian forest would be felled to make way for the reservoir, and that kind of forest in this part of the state is extremely rare. Should this project move forward through the initiation of the Phase 3 study or the formation of the Mounds Lake Commission, it will provide fertile ground for legal action based on both state and federal statutes, as well as legal resistance from affected property owners. This project has serious potential to run afoul of Indiana's state statutes. It would constitute an appropriation of a free-flowing river, a portion of the Mounds State Park, and the complete destruction of the Mounds Fen Nature Preserve, all of which are part of the public trust held for all future generations of Indiana residents. Furthermore, building the reservoir clearly does not rise to the imperative and unavoidable necessity, and those are in quotes, that's required by the State Nature Preserves Act for the destruction of the Mounds Fen Nature Preserve. This nature preserve, according to 2 different universities that have studied it, has the highest floristic quality index, plant species richness of any site in east central Indiana, one of the highest in the state of Indiana. It's more than twice the level that is considered an imperative floristic diversity to preserve. So the Nature Preserves Act needs to be taken very seriously here. The Phase 2 project doesn't even comment on that and just sidesteps the issue, says it's a unique preserve, we'll mitigate it. Well, it's illegal to just destroy this preserve, and they dodge that whole point. The proposed reservoir would also face federal legal challenges. It would clearly not be considered the least damaging practicable alternative for water supply, which is required to obtain a Clean Water Act Section 404 permit from the U.S. government. The likelihood that the endangered Indiana bat and the soon-to-be listed as endangered or threatened northern long-eared bat make their homes in Mounds State Park creates Endangered Species Act problems for this proposal as well. Finally, civil lawsuits by affected residents and business owners are almost certain to be filed if this project advances to the permitting stage, potentially draining the coffers of the communities that are forming the Mounds Lake Commission. Therefore, realizing that the revitalization of the economies of Madison and Delaware counties was the purpose of this proposal, we offer an alternative. We invite the Anderson Corporation for Economic Development to partner with us, Heart of the River, our coalition partners, and our community to explore alternative plans that embrace the White River Corridor as an integral element of our natural heritage and community fabric. Work with us to create a plan that will protect a free-flowing White River. In doing so, we will safeguard the sensitive ecosystems and forests, protect our archaeological and historic sites, and craft a plan that rejects the use of eminent domain. One alternative, conceived by the Hoosier Environmental Council, is the Mounds Greenway proposal. Perhaps this would be a good place to begin our conversations. I'd like to turn this over to Tim Maloney of Hoosier Environmental Council to explain.
Thank you, Jeff and Marion. Good morning, everyone. Tim Maloney again with the Hoosier Environmental Council, and we're displaying the map of the proposed Mounds Greenway, and we think this alternative plan for the White River would provide both conservation of a tremendously valuable natural resource for East Central Indiana, as well as sustainable economic opportunities. And very simply put, the Mounds Greenway would be a linear park along the river from Anderson, from the east side of Anderson to the west side of Muncie, going past Mounds State Park and the community parks in Daleville and Chesterfield and Yorktown. And at its core, the Greenway Plan is based on two principles. Preserve the free-flowing White River as a natural aquatic ecosystem, protect the riparian lands, the forest lands and wetlands along the river, and also conserve the great historic and archaeological features that are in the park and along the river. And then secondarily, we think this type of greenway project would create a premier regional recreational destination. And so obviously the river is already providing a great water-based recreation asset. People canoe and kayak on it. You have very prosperous canoe liveries that operate on the river. It's a popular fishing area. As part of the recreational features, we would propose that a hiking and biking trail run the entire length of the Greenway corridor, connecting with the Anderson City Trail system at Rangeline Preserve, and then running to the east to Muncie and connecting with the White River Greenway system in Muncie. And by doing that, when you connect up the Anderson City Trails with the Muncie City Trails, that you then get a connection to the Cardinal Greenway, which is another 62 miles of trail connection going up towards Marion and south to Richmond. Taken all together, it's would be over 100 miles of hiking and biking trails. And when you look around the country, communities all over the United States are doing these types of projects. First, recognizing that natural rivers are a great community asset and something to feature and capitalize on as communities try to develop and revitalize themselves, particularly hard-hit manufacturing communities like in this region. And I want to call your attention to a manufacturing strategy that was just released, an economic vision and manufacturing strategy just released for the Anderson, Muncie, and Newcastle region last fall. And this strategy actually recommended a plan that very similar to the Mounds Greenway. And the study noted, and I'm quoting, "Natural amenities add to the sense of place and represent an untapped opportunity for enhancing the region." And in one of the key initiatives of this plan, it recommends creating a regional green space and water trail network plan. And the plan states, and I think it's important to quote this part of the plan specifically, "Why are we targeting a green space trail network as part of a manufacturing strategy? It comes back to offering the quality of life amenities that employers and employees demand. This long-range project would connect our existing trails and green space amenities, including the Cardinal Greenway, Indiana's longest paved trail, to offer a unique biking and hiking amenity for residents of our region, as well as a destination attracting people from across the greater Indianapolis area." Sounds a lot like the Mounds Greenway to us. And the Greenway plan is in stark contrast to what's proposed for the Mounds Reservoir. And it will protect a high-quality natural resource and promote prosperity in a sustainable way, and it will do that by protecting natural resources, not destroying them. And that's the real contrast between the Greenway plan or something similar and the Reservoir plan. And even though the reservoir proponents are proposing to add trails and recreational features, those just won't come close to compensating for the loss of 7 or more miles of a really high-quality natural stream, or compensate for losing a third of Mounds State Park, or compensate for losing the irreplaceable Mounds Fen in the park. And as Marion noted earlier, you simply cannot mitigate for this kind of environmental damage. You can't replace 7 miles of a high-quality natural stream. You can't replace a unique natural community that was created by glacial forces. These are things that are just not replaceable. And we'd also point out that the mitigation costs have not been accurately estimated in the Phase 2 report. The Ball State University review indicated that they felt the cost estimate was probably at least $56 million low in terms of the cost of mitigating for the damage of the Mounds Reservoir. We think the Mounds Greenway could be done. It would enjoy a lot of community support and contribute to quality of place and quality of life that so many of our public officials and economic officials are saying is what we have to include as we redevelop our communities. So we strongly support Heart of the River's call to cease planning for the reservoir and begin planning for an alternative. And I just want to clarify here as I conclude that just to make sure that everyone knows that not all of the opponents of the reservoir also support the Greenway. There is some distinction there, and I just want to clarify that. But we do have 9 organizations now lending their support to the Greenway. And again, we would love to work with the affected communities here to plan a really sustainable and conservation-minded alternative. Thank you.